So it is getting used in mostly all the fields which exist right now, right? It is getting used in mobile development. It is getting used in desktop app development. It is getting used in making web apps or websites. So you can imagine any web app or website. So all those are built using JavaScript. So some part is JavaScript. If you talk about YouTube, there is JavaScript in the form of React.js. If you talk about YouTube, sorry, Facebook, there is JavaScript in the form of React.js, right? So you know React.js is a library built on the top of JavaScript only, and Facebook has built that. Okay, so all the web apps or websites, if you talk about, there are various websites. So all those are mostly built in JavaScript, right? So you must be aware, like, what is the purpose of JavaScript, why it was introduced. So all these questions will be answered in this class, right? Why there was a need for creating the JavaScript and what role it is playing now and why we should learn it, right? So first of all, let's quickly understand what is programming. So you know, just like humans talk to each other, right? We talk to each other in English language or some other native language, right? But how do computers, how do we talk to computers? So there is no way, right? But we want to talk to computers because computers are the machines and they provide us the result very quickly, right? If you have to perform any calculation, we can just ask the computer and the computer will provide us the result very quickly, which a human can take a lot of time to calculate that, right? So how should we communicate to the computer? Communicate with the computer. So one way is to talk to computer, but we cannot talk with computer because computer cannot understand English language, right? Since computer cannot understand English language, just a second. Okay. So as I was saying that we cannot talk with the computer in English language, right? So computer has its own language, which is a binary language, because computer only understands the binary numbers, which are zeros and ones, right? It's a combination of zeros and ones, which is on and off simply. So these are basically the signals, right? Electric signals. On, off, on, off. So this is what computer understands, right? So computer cannot understand English language. So that's the problem, okay? As you can see here, the only language understood by computer is machine language, which is nothing but a machine language which is in the form of zeros and ones, right? So writing program in machine language is difficult and time consuming. As you must be knowing that instead of learning numbers, it's better to learn the text format, right? We can easily learn the text as compared to numbers, right? So that's the one reason we are not using machine language directly to communicate with the computer. Also, if we write the code in machine language, that code will not work on another machine because that will have the different specifications. Okay, so this was the drawback of not writing the code directly in machine language. So we write the code in high level language. What do you mean by high level language? So high level language is simply close to English language. Okay, but if we are writing something in English language, computer cannot understand that. So computer requires a translator. Okay, so there is a translator. What it does, it simply converts the code that you have written in English language to machine understandable language, which is machine code. Okay, so translator can be of various types, like it can be a compiler, it can be an assembler, or it can be an interpreter. Okay, so in case of JavaScript, we use interpreter. So JavaScript code is executed line by line, one line and then second line and then third line. So the code is translated to machine code line by line. Firstly, first line will be translated, then second line will be translated, and so on. Okay, I hope this is clear. Then as I told you that JavaScript is a interpreted language, but there are various other languages which are compiled languages. Like we have C language, which is a compiler-based language. There we use the compiler. So what is the difference between the compiler and interpreter? So basically, both of them simply are the translators, and they simply translate your code, which is in English language, to machine understandable code. The way is different. In the case of interpreter, line by line code is translated to machine understandable code. But in case of compiler, the complete code gets converted to machine understandable code. Okay? And it's not line by line in this case. I hope this is clear. As you can see here, the difference is written that in case of compiler, it scans the code in one go. Okay, so if there are any errors that are shown at the end together, and in case of interpreter, considering it scans code one line at a time, errors are shown line by line. Okay, so if there will be any error at line number 1, so and if you have written line number 2, line number 3 as well, so if there is any error at line number 1, so our code will stop at line number 1. Firstly, we will have to fix that error, and then we can execute the code again, and then it will be converted to machine understandable code line by line. I hope this is clear. Now the next question is that how web works. Till here, I hope everything is clear. Okay. Moving forward, how web works, it's very simple that the user types the URL on the browser. Okay. Suppose any URL, suppose www.google.com. Okay. And then he sees the website, right? So from where the website comes in our browser. Okay. So what happens in the background, that we need to understand. So whenever we enter a URL in our browser, like for example, we are typing www.google.com, a lot of things happen behind the scenes. Okay. So when you press enter after writing the URL, your web browser sends a request to a special computer called a server. Okay, so there is a special computer which is server, where our request goes from our browser. This server holds the website which we want to see. Okay. The web browser needs to find the server where the website is stored. So it does this by using something called as domain name system. Okay, so when you have www.google.com, so this google.com is nothing but the domain name. So this domain name gets converted to IP address. Okay, and each server has their own IP address. So based on the IP address of google.com, it can check, okay, this is the server, so I need the result from this particular server, and through the browser the request goes to that particular server, to that particular IP address, and you get the result. The result is in the form of HTML, CSS and JavaScript. With the help of the browser, you see that, okay, the web page is made up of HTML, CSS and JavaScript, which are languages that define how the page should look and behave. I hope this is clear. So once your web browser receives the web page, it starts interpreting the HTML, CSS and JavaScript code. It uses this code to display the content, format it and make it interactive. This is what you see as the final result on your browser. Okay, so it's very simple. you see this result. So see here we have Python, right? Python is widely used, but at the same time you can see it also other contenders include JavaScript. So in the top 5 you will see JavaScript. Okay, best programming languages to learn for your career growth: front end JavaScript, TypeScript, right? So whichever website you see, there will be a JavaScript language for sure. Okay, here you can see JavaScript is there. Similarly, here you can see JavaScript is there. Okay, because the popularity increased because this JavaScript, which was initially created just for the web browser, is now getting used outside of the web browsers also, in the form of with the help of Node.js. Okay, so with the help of Node.js, now you can run the JavaScript code outside of the web browser on your machine, on any server. Okay, and also earlier what used to happen, that if you are building a full stack website, okay, then for the front end you had to learn a different programming language, which was JavaScript. Then for the back end you were either going with PHP or Java or Python maybe, right? But the developers had thought that if we can use this JavaScript outside of the web browser, then it will be easy for developers to just know JavaScript and they will be good to go with front end as well as in the back end, right? I hope you are understanding this. Okay, cool. Then what is this ECMAScript? I'll quickly tell you about it. So it's just the name of the international standard that defines JavaScript programming language. So you can assume it as a toolbox for JavaScript developers. So the developers of JavaScript simply keeps on adding new features or improvements or guidelines to write better code and JavaScript more awesome, right? So all this is nothing but a part of ECMAScript. So all these features are there inside this ECMAScript. So the people who make ECMAScript, they are called ECMAScript committee. Okay, so they are like a group of smart people who come up with new ideas and improvements for JavaScript. So they talk about what features to add, how things should work, and they make sure everything makes sense and work nicely. Okay, so you see with the time there were different versions of ECMAScript. Okay, so initially it was ECMAScript 1, which was the first edition. Then ECMAScript 2 came with some changes in the first version, right? Then with ECMAScript 3, regular expressions or try-catch were introduced. Okay, then ECMAScript 4, that was never released. Then ECMAScript 5 came into existence, which also supported the strict mode that is there in JavaScript. Then JSON support was there, string array, all these support came into existence after ECMAScript 5. Okay, then ECMAScript 6 came into existence in 2015. With this, many new features were introduced, like arrow functions were introduced. Okay, let and const were introduced. These are the keywords for defining the variables in JavaScript. Okay, so many destructuring was introduced. Okay, so many good concepts were introduced in ECMAScript 6, which are nowadays getting used. Professionals are using those features. Okay, and even in React.js, once after learning JavaScript, if you would like to move to React.js or some other library of JavaScript or framework, then you will see that ECMAScript 6 features are getting used there. Okay, so I hope everything is clear till here. So it's just the details about the ECMAScript release, what they had, what was the improvements, all those things. Okay, now let's see the interesting uses of JavaScript. So I already told you that JavaScript is getting used in creating web apps, right? So Google Map is one of the example. Okay, so in Google Maps you use JavaScript, HTML and CSS. You see there is the search button, there's a search bar, right, in the Google Maps, where you search for a location, right? So that functionality is nothing but with the help of JavaScript only. Okay, similarly Dropbox is there. which is a file hosting service that allows users to store and share files online. So it is built using JavaScript, Python, and Go language. Similarly, we have Netflix, right? Everyone knows Netflix. So JavaScript, Python, and Java is used there. Similarly, PayPal is there, which is online payment system. Okay. Similarly, Twitter. Similarly, Facebook. So all these web apps are using JavaScript. If we talk about Amazon, Amazon is also using JavaScript. Okay, it is also using Java and C++. Similarly, YouTube. Okay. Now, you might be confused, like what is the difference between web app and website. So websites are primarily focused on providing information and content to visitors. Okay, so on websites you will see more of the content thing. Okay, like you have the news websites, okay, where you see just the content. And in case of web apps are more interactive than websites. They allow users to perform tasks such as shopping, banking, or playing games. Like Facebook is a web app, right? Because there you can play games, there you can shop, right? All these things. Then we can develop websites using JavaScript. So Google is one of the website. Then Facebook is there, LinkedIn is there, Amazon is there, YouTube is there. So and many other. In fact, every website, if you see, is built using JavaScript. Okay. Most of the popular websites you see in the market. Okay, like Gmail is there, Twitter is there, all those. Then you can develop mobile applications. So there's React Native, which is again a JavaScript framework. Okay, means using the JavaScript only, React Native is developed. So it has lot of predefined functions that you can use to easily create mobile applications without going into detail or without starting from the very scratch. Okay, so JavaScript is getting used there to create cross-platform mobile application. Cross-platform means that you can create iOS applications as well as Android applications. Okay. So some popular apps built with React Native include Instagram, Uber, Airbnb. Okay. In fact, Facebook is also one of them. Then games, yeah, we can develop games using JavaScript. So there are various games that are built using JavaScript. There's agar.io. Okay, there's agar.io. So if I quickly search this game agar.io, so you can see how it looks. So this is the game. Okay, you can just check it out if you want, if you love games. Okay, so this is one of the game that is a multiplayer game where players control a cell and try to eat other cells to grow larger. Similarly, Fall Guys is one of the game. Geometry Dash is there, Slater.io is there. So all these games are built using JavaScript. Okay, so there are these are just a few examples of many popular games that have been built using JavaScript. So Phaser Game Engine is a popular JavaScript framework for creating 2D games. Okay, so this engine is generally used for creating the 2D games. Then 3.js is a popular JavaScript library for creating 3D games. All right. Then we talk about smartwatches. There also JavaScript is getting used. So if you have heard about Pebble smartwatch, so in that we use JavaScript. Okay. So JavaScript framework is basically getting used to create the games or the other stuff that is there in smartwatches. Okay. Then if you talk about presentation, so all the presentation that you see, the animation that you see, the interactivity or functionality that you see is all because of the JavaScript. So because of JavaScript, users can click on elements to trigger actions like playing videos or moving to the next slide, right? Similarly, you can change colors, fading effects, all those is possible because of JavaScript. Then it also helps us in text search, note taking, or interaction with presentation elements. So all this happens because of JavaScript. Then popular JavaScript libraries for presentations include Reveal.js is one of the library, then Deck.js is there, Slidey is there. So all these libraries are simply helping in developing something or to building something very quickly, okay, because we have predefined classes or functions, I would say. After that, JavaScript is also getting used on the server side. As I have told you, JavaScript is not only for web browser, okay, but can also be used on servers. So here are some examples. So web servers, JavaScript through Node.js. Okay, Node.js is a runtime environment. So that with the help of which JavaScript code can run on a server side. So that can be used to create web servers, which are like host for website, right? We can also build APIs using JavaScript that help to interact with other applications. Okay. Similarly, data processing, suppose some calculation is taking place in your website, so all those large data set is there, so all those can be done using JavaScript code. You can also create chatbots, okay, that can assist customers and answer their questions. Now comes what is Node.js. Okay, so before Node.js came along, JavaScript could only be used in web browsers. Okay, as I already told you, before Node.js came into existence, JavaScript was only getting used in the web browsers. But some clever people wanted to use JavaScript to build other types of programs, like ones that run on servers, right? So they created Node.js. So Node.js is an open source runtime environment that allows you to run JavaScript code on the server side, meaning it can execute JavaScript outside of the web browser. It was created to solve a problem. JavaScript was primarily used for front-end web development, but there was a need for a way to use it on the server side as well. Okay, so that's why Node.js came into existence. I hope this is clear. So Node.js was developed to simplify this process. Basically, as I told you, that in the past, different programming languages were used for server-side tasks, right? Such as handling requests, accessing databases, and performing other server-related operations. So this meant that developers had to switch between different programming languages, which could be time-consuming and complex. So Node.js was developed to simplify this process by enabling developers to use JavaScript on the server side too. Okay, I hope this is clear. So as you know, additionally, Node.js is built on the V8 JavaScript engine, the same engine that powers the Google Chrome browser. So just now I told you that JavaScript is a programming language that when you write the code in English language, right, that code gets converted to machine understandable code, right? So I told you that in the browser, when you write the JavaScript code, initially it was running on our browsers, right? So how our code was getting converted to machine understandable code? Because of this V8 JavaScript engine. Okay, so this V8 JavaScript engine is there inside this Chrome browser. Okay, so this helps in executing JavaScript code. So you can run the JavaScript code in the web browser because you have this V8 JavaScript engine which converts your code which is in English language to machine understandable code. Okay, now this Node.js also has this V8 JavaScript engine. That's why you are able to run the JavaScript code outside of the web browser. Okay, I hope these concepts are clear, because if these basic concepts will be clear, then it will be very easy for you to understand rest of the things. I think okay. So I hope guys till here everything is clear. If you have any doubts, you can just write it in the chat so I can answer them. But this was simply very basic things that I have explained you. So I'm now moving forward with more things that you need to know. Okay. So this is important. This is even asked in interviews also, that how JavaScript is running outside of the web browser. So it is running with the help of this V8 JavaScript engine, which is there inside this Node.js. Now, ways of running JavaScript. Okay. Now we have talked about why JavaScript was created. Okay, who created it, what was the need, what is Node.js, all those things we understood. We also understood why JavaScript is necessary, where it is getting used nowadays, right? All these things we know now. Now, next thing is we want to write the JavaScript code and see how it looks, how it behaves, how it works, right? So there are ways of running JavaScript, different ways. First is browser console. As I told you, there is V8 engine in the web browser. So that helps in converting the JavaScript code to machine code. So most web browsers provide a built-in JavaScript console that allows you to execute JavaScript code directly. So to open it, you just have to right click, go to inspect, go to console. Okay, so here this is the JavaScript console. Here you can write your JavaScript code. This is just an interactive shell where you can test your JavaScript code. Okay, like for example, if I write 2 plus 3 and hit enter, we are getting the result. Okay, so what we did, we asked computer to add these two numbers and the computer has added and given us the result. This is because of the V8 engine that is there in the browser. Okay, similarly, if you have to print something onto the console, you write it like this: console.log and your message inside these parentheses, like for example, hello. Once you hit enter, you see you are getting hello here. Okay. Later on, when you will study the concept of functions, then you will understand that why we are getting this undefined value also. Does anyone of you know why we are getting this undefined value? We are getting hello because we have printed hello to the console, but we are also getting this undefined. Can anybody tell me why we are getting this undefined? No? Sorry? Hello? Irfana, are you saying something?
Because console log to out and find the last.
Yeah. Tell me, Iliama, I think. Iliam, you raise your hand. If I do, I'll explain you, okay? Yeah, exactly, Iliam. You're right that here what is happening, we are not returning any value. This method console.log is not returning any value. That's why we are getting undefined. If you're not understanding it, it's completely fine. But for now, just understand that one way of running the JavaScript code is through this interactive shell, which is known as console, JavaScript console. It is by default there in your browsers. Okay, I hope you understood this. Now, next is we can run a JavaScript code through the HTML file. So JavaScript code can be included directly in an HTML file using the script tag. You can either place the JavaScript code directly within the script tag or link an external JavaScript file using the src attribute. So this is very simple. Let's see how this will work. So I have opened the VS Code. Okay. If you don't have VS Code, then completely it's fine. Okay. Later on, when we'll study the topics one by one, then I'll tell you the installation process. But if you have it, then also it's fine. You can just view it for now. So I have this main.js file. I have named it main.js file. I also have this index.html file where some code is already written for me. I'll remove it. Okay. So I have this index.html file. If you on VS Code, if you press this exclamation mark and press tab key, you get a predefined code. This is nothing but the boiler code. Okay, this boiler code simply defines the structure or simply tells our web browser that okay, this is the HTML document. Okay, doc type is HTML. Okay, then char set is there, that what kind of characters it will support. Then viewport is there, so our screen viewport. Okay, like that. Then we have this title, which is by default set to document. Okay, so I'm not going deep into it. So this is the head section and this is the body section. So I told you there are two ways of adding the JavaScript code in your HTML file. One way is to add it uh, inside the script tag in this particular file only, or create a new separate JS file and and pull it here. Okay, use it here in this HTML file. Okay, so if you have less number of lines of code, then you can directly use that JavaScript code here in the script tag. So you just write the script tag like this. Okay, and whatever your JavaScript code is, you can just write it. Suppose I'm just printing here, hello, my name is Khan, something like this. Okay, once you do it, now uh, there is a VS Code extension which is Go Live Live Server. This is the extension tab. So from here you can install Live Server if you are using VS Code. Okay. So by clicking on this, I can go on a live server and I can see the result. So I'll just click on Go Live. So you see index.html file is opened in our browser. I'll just right click and inspect this. We'll go to the console and here you see we are seeing the result. Hello, my name is Khan. Okay. So this is nothing but inline JavaScript where you are writing the JavaScript code in the index.html file itself. Okay. So this JavaScript code can be written in the body section also, and it can be written in the head section also. At both places, it will work perfectly fine. Okay. Now if I run it again, if I change the text to this, if I go back to the browser, you see, hello, my name is Faizan. So we are seeing the result here also. So you can either write the script tag in the head section or the body section. But the preferred way is to add it in the body section and at the bottom only. Why? Because you know JavaScript code gets executed line by line, so it takes time in execution. So because of that, I don't want my rest of the UI to be late in displaying it. Okay, so that's why I want my UI to be displayed as soon as possible, and then the JavaScript code can be loaded in the background. Okay, that's why we keep the JavaScript code at the end position inside the body. Okay, now this is one of the way of adding the JavaScript code. Another way is to use the src attribute. Okay, and here just mention the file name. Since this main.js file is in the same folder where you have this index.html, so you just need to pass the name of the file like this. Okay, but if it was in some other folder, then you would have to pass the complete path of that file. Okay, relative path or absolute path. Then I'll come to this main.js and here I can just paste this line. I'll change it back to Khan. Okay, now I'll go back to the browser. You see, hello, my name is Khan. This is also working. Okay, so generally the preferred way is to create a separate JS file, create a separate HTML file, and create a separate CSS file. Okay, and link the JS file and CSS file with this HTML file so that it's neat and clean. Everything is neat and clean. If you want, you can add all the code in this HTML file directly, but that is not a good way. Okay, that will be too complicated for others to read it. I hope this is clear. So this is one of the way. I think I've received some message. Yeah, Eliam. Yeah, tell me. No, that is the way to link the CSS file, not the JS file. Okay, that way you can link the CSS file. Okay, so I hope this is clear that how you can run the JavaScript code using the HTML file. Now moving forward, server-side JavaScript. So JavaScript can be executed on the server side using platforms such as Node.js. Okay, so we can also run the JavaScript using Node.js. Okay, so what we have to do, firstly we need our Node.js to be installed in our PC. Why we need Node.js to be installed? Because Node.js contains the V8 engine. Okay, and that V8 engine helps in executing the JavaScript code outside of the web browser. That's why we need Node.js to be installed firstly. Once that is installed, then you can just write the JavaScript code like I have written it here. Okay, this JavaScript code is written. Now I can go to the terminal, and then I can go to the new terminal, and you see the terminal is open. Now to run this code using the Node.js, you just type here node and the file name, which is main.js. Okay, node and main.js. Once you write this command, this code will be converted to machine understandable code. Machine will understand what you are trying to do, and machine will provide you the result here. Sorry, like this. Okay, so it can be any code and not just console.log. Later on we'll see the codes that we can do. Okay, I hope this is clear. So also the JavaScript code can be executed even in Notepad. Okay, with the help of Notepad. Notepad is just an editor. Similarly, Visual Studio Code is also an editor where you can write your JavaScript code, and using Node.js or using the web browser you can run it. Okay, same thing, you can write your JavaScript code on Notepad, and then you can save it using the .js extension, so that browser or Node.js can understand that this is your JavaScript code, and they will convert the code to machine understandable code. I hope you are getting it. So JavaScript code can be written on different editors, like Visual Studio Code is there, WebStorm is there, Atom is there. Okay, so these IDEs simply provide rich features. There are many features including code editing, debugging. Okay, debugging means simply to find the errors in your code. Okay, so all these things are there. Okay, so you can just write your code in these editors and run it from there only within the IDE. Okay, you don't have to go to a separate terminal or command prompt to run the code. Then you have online editors with the help of which you can run the JavaScript code, because V8 engine is there as well. Like CodePen is there, REPL.it is there, JSFidel is there. Okay, so these platforms provide an integrated development environment in the browser, allowing you to write and execute JavaScript code without any local setup. Okay, so you don't need to do any local setup. Just sign up and then write your JavaScript code and run it there only. Okay, you can just search these websites, so you'll get a result here. Like REPL.it JavaScript, you type like this and you'll get a result, and you just open it. So it says Node.js compiler is there, so you can just sign up and you can just write the code, right? And all these things will be taught in great detail once we start the classes. Okay, after that, after learning all these concepts, there are some JavaScript fundamentals that every beginner should know, because if you don't know the fundamentals, then you will not be able to write the complete code. Okay, just like in the English language, you firstly learn the grammar to speak English fluently, right? So in the same way, if you are learning JavaScript language, so you need the grammar, but in this case we have the syntax. Okay, instead of grammar we have the syntax. Syntax is nothing but the rule of writing the code, what we should write and what we shouldn't write in our code. Okay, so JavaScript fundamental concepts we need to understand, like variables we need to understand, functions, data types, control flow, dates, arrays, loops, objects, operators, scope, and there are various other topics that one need to understand. Okay, Okay, moving forward. Uh, First thing is comments. This is very simple. Comments are simply like notes you write on your code to help you remember things or explain what the code does. They don't affect how the code runs, but they are useful for people who read the code. Okay, so there are two types of comments. Suppose this is the line. Okay, for now, if I want my interpreter to ignore this line and not run it. Okay, what I'll do, I'll comment it out like this. So when you add double forward slashes, so any line that starts with double forward slashes, JavaScript interpreter will simply ignore that line. Okay, JavaScript interpreter will think this line is for humans only, not for me. Okay, so why we use comments? Just to remember the things, or if we are sending our code to someone else so they can understand the code better. Sorry. So here we can just add a comment that this line prints my name, something like this. Okay, so if anyone is not familiar with all this JavaScript concept, he will just read this line and will understand like what the code is doing. Okay, so this is the way of writing a single line comment. Just like single line comment, you can also write multi-line comment. Like here you see the example of single line comment. You are writing this line. Now, if you are not familiar with this concept, then you can just read this line and you will understand. This line assigns a value to a variable. Excuse me. Okay, so just like we can write a single line comment, we can also write a multi-line comment. Okay, so how do we write a multi-line comment? So this is the way. We just put forward slash asterisk at the starting and end it like this, asterisk and forward slash. Okay, so if in your code, if you want to add a comment which takes multiple lines, so in that case you can use or write the comment like this. Okay, this is for a multi-line comment. I hope you understood it. Like in this case, this is the code and this is the multi-line comment that I have written. That this line multiplies two numbers and stores the result. I hope this is clear. So this is very simple. Then we'll talk about JavaScript keywords. So keywords in JavaScript are simply special words that have a specific meaning and purpose in the language. They are reserved words, which means you can't use them as variable names or give them different meaning. So the developers who has developed the JavaScript, the ECMAScript committee members, they have reserved some words and they have given some special meaning to those words. So you cannot use those words as variable names or function names or class names. Okay, so some words are reserved, they have the special meaning. Okay, those words are called as keywords. And what all are those words? So I have added some of them, like var is one of them. This is used to declare variables. We'll talk about variables a bit later. Okay. So this is how we can use it. Var age assign 15. So for example, if you want to store a person's age, you could use the keyword where like this. Okay, so for storing the person's age, you can write something like this. Similarly, if is a keyword which is a reserved word, so it has a special meaning in JavaScript. Okay, the keyword if is used for conditional statements. As you can see here, that if this condition is true, means if age is greater than equals to 18, then print this line, otherwise print this line. Okay, we'll go deep into all this later on. Then function is again a keyword. So whenever you define a function, you start it with this function keyword. Okay, so when you add this function keyword, the JavaScript interpreter understands that this is now a function definition. Okay, we are defining a function. Then for this is used for looping. Okay, so if you have like loops allow you to repeat a set of instructions multiple times. Okay, so if you want to repeat something again and again, in that case we can use a loop to do it once only. Like if you have to print numbers from 1 to 5, you can either write console.log1, then console.log2, console.log3, and so on, or you can use the for loop to do it like this. Okay, you'll understand this later. Then return is again a keyword. This is again used in functions to return a value. So these are all the reserved keywords that we use. Okay, there are a lot of reserved words here. Then comes data types in JavaScript. So there are various types of data that you can add in your code. Okay, you can store in the variables. Okay, different types of data. So we can store string data, we can store number data, we can store boolean data, we can store null, undefined, then object, arrays, functions. All these can be stored in a variable. Okay, so this is nothing but the type of data that is getting stored in your code. So data types in JavaScript define the kind of data that can be stored and manipulated in the program. JavaScript has several built-in data types. Like number is there, that is nothing but either the integer value or the float value, I mean the decimal value. Okay, it includes both number data type. Then string data type, so any text that is written in either single quotes or double quotes, that is nothing but a string. As you can see, this data is a string because this is inside double quotes. Then this data is again a string because this is added in a single quote. Okay, and you see we are assigning all this data inside the variables. Okay, we are assigning this John to this name variable. Variable is nothing but just a container inside which we can store our values, okay, of different data types. Then comes booleans. Booleans have only two possible values, which is true or false. They are often used for making decisions in programming. Okay, so based on the condition or based on the true or false value, we can make different decisions in our program. Okay, so they are basically categorized in two categories: primitive, so string, number, boolean, null, undefined. All these are primitive data types, and in case of non-primitive, there is object, array, and function. Okay. Then comes null. Null is again a data type. It represents the absence of any value. Okay. It represents the absence of any value. This is generally asked in interviews, like what is the difference between null and undefined. So in case of null, null simply represents the absence of any value. So if I'm writing it like this, it means the result variable doesn't have any value currently. Okay, it means no value is assigned to it. Then what is this undefined? It is again a special value that represents the absence of a value. Okay, so if we are writing it like this, let me just quickly run this code. If I declare a variable city like this, and now if I do console.log and print the city variable, okay, so if you are not inserting any value, if you are adding null, then it will have null value. If you print it, you see you are getting null. But if you are not inserting any value inside this container, which is a variable, right, then by default it will have undefined. You see, undefined we are getting. So undefined is simply the absence of the value. I hope this is clear. Then comes the arrays. I told you arrays are non-primitive data type. So arrays are used to store multiple values in a single variable. Okay, so you can store multiple values like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all this in single variable, which is numbers. Similarly, you can store multiple values like apple, banana, orange. All these are strings, right? So you are storing all these multiple values inside one variable, which is fruits. Arrays can store multiple values of different data types. They are created using square brackets. So how will you recognize it's an array? When you see anything inside square brackets, so that represents an array. Got it? Okay. Next, we have functions. This is again a data type. Why I'm saying it's a data type? Because you can assign a function also to a variable. We'll learn this in great detail later on, but for now, just understand that functions can also be, yeah.
I want to ask if the function is different from a variable.
Function is different from a variable. Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Function contains a code. Function has a code that you can reuse multiple times.
Okay.
Variable is just a container inside which you can store some value.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so variable is just a container inside which you can add some value. And function is a block of code where you have some code, and that code can be reused multiple times in your program or wherever it is necessary. So this is the major difference between the two. Okay, so function is again a data type because you can assign a function. Here you see a function is getting assigned to a variable, which is greet. Okay. Then comes the objects. So think of an object as a container that holds related information or properties. Okay, so object has related data. It's like a real world object that has characteristics or attributes. For example, let's say we have an object representing a car. So this is how you create an object. Okay, here we have created the object car. Okay, this is the object, and how you will understand this is an object by seeing these curly braces. Okay, and also this object will have a key value pair where this will be known as the key and this will be the value. Okay, or you can call it as properties. Okay, these are the properties of this object where you have brand Toyota, model Camry, year 2021, color is blue. Okay, so you see all this is related information to car. So the related information we keep inside objects. Got it? After this, we can talk about variables. So as I told you, variable is nothing but a container, right? Where we can store some value. Like here we are storing 5 inside this container A. Similarly, in this container, we can store Bob. In this container, we can store true. In this container, we can store 35. Okay. So this is how you have to store a value inside a variable. You declare a variable firstly, and then you assign a value to it. Okay. See, I'm not going into detail of each and everything because this is just a webinar, right? Once you enroll in the courses, then we will be explaining each and everything from scratch. Okay, I hope you are understanding this thing. So I'm just giving you the overview of each and everything. So you see, var name. What I have done, this is a string value. I have stored it inside this name variable. Okay, this is a variable. Then this is a keyword var. This is used to declare variables. Okay, we need to declare variables using the keywords like var, let, or const. And this is the value that we are storing inside this variable. Now we can do console.log and we can pass this name. So when we pass this name, what will happen? Its value that is there inside this container, that will be printed. You see, Faizan is getting printed here. Then there are JavaScript identifiers. So identifiers are the names you give to variables, functions, classes, or objects. Okay, this is very simple. The preferred way is to not use the short names but more descriptive names like age, sum, total volume instead of x and y. Okay, so whenever you are creating a variable, always try to give a meaningful name to it, not just x and y, because if you will visit the same code again after a week, you will not be able to understand what is there inside x and y. But if you give some meaningful name like age, sum, you will easily understand what is there inside it. Okay, then there are some rules for naming the variables, like what names are allowed and what names are not allowed. Okay, that we can discuss later on. A variable declaration, you understood that before using the variable, before using the value of a variable, you declare it. Okay, so declaration can be done using var or let or const. Okay, I told you in ECMAScript 6, let and const came into existence. Okay, earlier we only had this var, which was used for declaring variables, but now we have all three, var, let, and const. But these two are getting used nowadays, let and const. Okay, maybe in future this var will be depreciated, but it is still getting used there. Okay, it is there in the market, but we prefer using let and const. So if you see the code nowadays, so that code will mostly have let or const for declaring variables. As it is mentioned here, that prior to ECMAScript 6 version of JavaScript, the var keyword was the primary way to declare variables. It is still supported in modern JavaScript, but is less preferable compared to let and const. Okay, then we can talk about scope of variables, like where we can use the variables or where we cannot use the variables. What will be the life of the variable that we are using here? Okay, will it be present in the complete code, or will it be there only for a particular block of code? Okay, will it be accessible only within a function, or where? Basically the scope. Okay, so there is global scope, means if you are declaring any variable outside any function, then that is known as a global variable, which is a global scope. So a global variable has life until and unless your complete code ends. Okay, so you can use that global variable anywhere in your code. It is accessible everywhere. Okay, then you have function scope. So you define the variables inside a function. I know you don't know functions, or you don't know anything related to functions, but for now just understand that you can define variables inside a function. So that variable that you have defined inside a function, it can only be used inside a function. It can only be used inside a function. If you try to use it outside the function, then it will give an error. Local variable is not defined. You see this error? Okay. Then we have block scope. So this block scope was introduced in ECMAScript 6. Earlier there was only function scope and this global scope. But now we also have block scope. So the variables which are declared with let or const inside a block have block scope. Okay. So if you see, what do you mean by block? So a block can be a loop, if a statement, or any code enclosed in curly braces. Okay. That is nothing but a block scope. So any code that is written inside curly braces, that is a block. Okay. So if you are declaring any variable using let or const, so they have life only within that block. If I quickly show you here that if I put this inside a block, if I put this code inside a block, how will I put it inside a block? You just have to put these curly braces like this. Now this code is inside this particular block. Now since it is, we are using var here, but if we use let here or const here, okay, then if we try to access this outside of this block, this name variable, if we print it here, then it will not give us the result. It will give us an error. So this is the error, reference error. Name is not defined. Okay. So currently I am using the Node.js to see the errors or to see the result. You can also use the web browser. So if you go to the web browser, there also you will see the same result. Okay, it's just that you need to attach this main.js file to this index.html file, and then you need to start the server. And you just need to inspect it. Go to console, and here you are seeing Faizan. Yeah, this is correct. Okay, this you are seeing the result. Okay, but here this is not providing you the result. Okay, at the same time this is not displaying any error also here, but if you use Node.js, then you will see the reference error here. Okay. So I hope this is clear. Then we can study the differences between var, let, and const later on. Okay, that what is the difference between these three and why var was replaced with let and const. What was the reason? Okay, so in this notes everything is there. We can discuss this. Then what about let? Why we use let? What is the difference between let, var, and const? Okay. Then what is the difference between let and const? So all these things we can study. Then what are operators? So operator is a special symbol used to perform operations on operands. Operands means values and variables. So in this case, 2 is operand, 3 is operand, and this plus is a operator. Okay, so we are just performing arithmetic operation here, and the result is 5, which is in the form of a comment. Okay. So JavaScript operators, there are various JavaScript operators. Arithmetic operators are there: plus, minus, multiplication, division. Comparison operator is there: equal to, strictly equal to, greater than equal to, less than equal to, not equal to, not strictly equal to. Okay, then we have logical operator: or is there, and is there, not is there. Then we have ternary operator. This works similar to the if condition, where you write the condition in just one line. Okay, so you have the condition. Based on the condition, if the condition is true, we see this block of code getting executed, and if the condition is false, then we see this false block code. Then we have assignment operators, which is nothing but equals to this. You are continuously seeing everywhere wherever we have written the code. Here you see this is the assignment operator, where we are assigning a value to a variable. You know, in maths this is called as equal to, but in programming this is known as assignment. And what is equal to? Equal to is this operator, this one, where we use double. Okay, and this is strictly equal to. These are just used for the comparison, whether left value is equals to right value or not. So then we have all these operators in great detail. We'll understand all these operators, how they work. Okay, the examples are related to these operators. Then arithmetic operator is there. Arithmetic is very simple. Okay, there's also this plus plus, minus minus. This is very much used in coding. After that, we have comparison operator, less than, greater than. Right. Then we have logical operator is there. Similarly, bitwise operator, which works on the binary numbers. All right. Then we have a string operator is there. Conditional operator is there. As I told you, conditional or ternary operator, both are same based on the condition. If this condition is true, okay, then 4 will go inside this a variable. And if this condition is false, then this 3 will go, this 5 will go inside this a variable. So based on the condition, one value, either 4 or 5, will go inside this a variable. Okay. Again, the same similar diagram is there, that based on the condition, if the condition is true, val1 will go inside variable. If the condition is false, val2 will go inside variable. Then here are the examples of conditional operators. Then we have unary operator. Unary operator works on single operand. There is one operand only. Okay. Increment, decrement is there. Then we have type of operator. This type of operator is just for checking the type of a variable. What is the variable type? Okay, like you see, this is the number, right? But in a code, if you want to check what is the type of this variable, then you can do console.log type of value, like this. Okay, like for example, if this is the code, if I have to check the type of name, so what I'll do, I'll just type here type of name, like this. Okay, and let me remove this line because this will give an error. If I run this, you see we are getting a string. Okay, because this is of a string type. If I change this to number, then we'll get number type. Okay, I hope this is clear. Then we have delete operator. This is used to delete the properties from an object or delete the elements from an array. Okay. Then we will learn about operator precedence later on. Okay. So there are various topics. There is if statement, else statement. Else if statement is there, switch case is there. Time doesn't permit me to explain each and everything here in just 1.5 hour class, but we'll surely learn all these concepts later on. Then we'll talk about loops. There are different loops: while loop, for loop, do while loop, for in loop, for off loop, infinite loop. There is for each loop. There is map also. So all these things we can learn. Okay, so it's in detail. Everything is in detail about these loops. Then there's break statement, continuous statement, why they are used, where they are used, all these things. Then we'll talk about functions, which is very important in JavaScript, how we call it, different ways of writing functions, okay, advantages and disadvantages of functions. Okay, types of functions, built-in functions and user-defined functions, then different ways of writing functions. There's name function, function expression is there, arrow function is there. How this arrow function works, this is generally used nowadays. If you learn React.js, in React.js we generally use this. arrow functions. Okay, then we have immediately invoked function expressions, then we have method functions, anonymous functions. Okay, so a lot of thing is to be learned here, and this is just the synchronous JavaScript. Okay, there is also asynchronous JavaScript where we learn different concepts like promises, okay, which are closures. There are various topics that you need to understand. This was just the basic thing that I told you. Okay, so let's end this class here only. And I just wanted to tell you that if you are willing to enroll, then you can surely enroll into this course, or whichever course you would like to enroll in, like the front end or the back end or the full stack course or the Python course or any programming language course that you want to learn from basic to advanced level, you can enroll. Okay, so that's it. If you have any doubts, you can ask. Otherwise, we can end this class. Anyone? Any doubts? Okay. Thank you everyone for your time.